Excuse me. Hi folks, this is a VR to Tech Ruyc, R-U-Y-C-K, C rather, I'll probably pronounce that totally wrong, who asked me about Freemasonry, asked me whether I'd be prepared to put up a video about it. And I said yes. First of all, I'm smoking my cobbit of the Shire, my cob pipe, and I'm smoking 10 Russians. I like to have something tasty before I go to bed, and maybe a little stronger, but 10 Russians will suffice for tonight. Well, Tech, you asked about Freemasonry, and I think I have to say some things in preparation in advance. Each Grand Lodge in Freemasonry is a separate organisation, although many of them recognise each other, and they have separate rules and separate understandings about the basics. What I'm going to tell you about is English Freemasonry under the Grand Lodge of England. There are other Freemasonries in England. There's a masonry solely for women. And there's a masonry for both men and women, neither of which are recognised by the English Grand Lodge, although we do have talks with them, and we treat each other with respect. You'll have heard maybe that Freemasonry is a secret organisation. Well, it isn't. You know, you just stand outside any Freemasons lodge and you can see who goes in. You can know who are Freemasons just by watching them. It's not a secret society. It's a society that has things that it keeps confidential, or if you like, secret. But those secrets are known outside the lodge. There have been many books written that reveal them. There are many misunderstandings about Freemasonry. And the conspiracy theorists and the certain fundamental Christians have a field day. Mostly they talk a lot of crap, to be honest. I joined Freemasonry late in life, when I was in my 40s, probably. I didn't want to join before then, because I was suspicious of it. But one of my best friends at the time, one of my people who I respected immensely, a solid Christian who at the beginning of each year would sit down with his wife to sort out their finances. A tenth would immediately be hived off for the church, and then a tenth for charity. And he was a man of honour. He really was. You know, he wouldn't, if he had a computer program that was licensed for one, he'd buy his wife a separate program. He felt that strongly about what was right and wrong. and I knew he was a Freemason. He never kept it secret. He didn't wear his ring openly until I got into trouble in the church over Freemasonry, and then he wore his ring openly every day of his life until he died, because he was so disturbed by what had been done to me. There are things that I will tell you, and there are things that I won't tell you, things that I promise to keep secret, or promise not to tell. There are oaths in Freemasonry. In English Freemasonry, the oaths about having your throat slit and that, you don't take those. You promise as a man of honour not to reveal certain things. Each Grand Lodge has different things that it considers you cannot reveal. Now in England, those things are very limited. They're mainly the signs by which we recognise each other, only used in lodge, and the words which we use as passwords, only used in lodge, never used outside. Having said that, if you know, I knew my friend really well, and when we met, we always shook hands as Masons. Usually when we're in private, when we're in, his house or something like that, and we just shake hands. There's a lot of rubbish talked about the handshake, and a lot of things on the internet about the handshake. And you'll see them sort of saying, look, this politician's giving a Masonic sign. Well, they're not Masonic signs as I know them. And it's possible actually to give a Masonic handshake by accident. So you can't really put a lot of credence by somebody giving you a funny handshake, because they're just ordinary handshakes, a lot of them. I want to say something to Freemasons of other jurisdictions. You may think that I've said too much, or I will say too much. I promise you that these are only things that I'm allowed to say in an English lodge, or about an English lodge. What your rules are very different, and you have to accept that there are differences between us, and that I have not and will not ever break my oath. I am no longer a practicing Freemason. I left because I'm a man of honour, and I no longer believed in God or a higher power. It was suggested that I should stay, and that the belief in a higher power meant different things to different people. But I also belonged to what were called side orders, and one of those demanded that you believed in the Father, Son and Holy Spirit. I haven't yet come across one that says you have to believe in the devil. There isn't one, I don't think, not in any recognised lodge. Right, I think that's by way of introduction. I might have to do other videos on this if you want to know a bit more, but they say to be a Mason you have to ask. To be one, ask one. Well, if you wanted to be a Freemason, for instance, and you didn't know any Freemasons, then what you would do is get in touch with either a provincial Grand Lodge, that's an area Grand Lodge, or in the Grand Lodge of your state or country. And just say that you're interested in joining. They will get in touch with you. Somebody will come to see you probably, or they'll arrange for you to meet somebody from a local lodge, and he will just talk to you about it, and you can take it from there. So I approached my friend and said I was interested in Freemasonry, and he said, why? Do you just want to know because of being nosy? And I said, no, I want to know that if I joined, I wasn't getting into anything that would conflict with my Christian beliefs. And he said, Stephen, if you joined and you found anything that conflicted with your Christian beliefs, then please feel free to leave. You know, we don't claim to be a Christian organisation. We're not a religion, but we don't deal with religious subjects in that way. And so we talked a bit more, and he said, would you like to think about going forward? And I said, yes. And he then introduced me to another Freemason. We had a meal. We talked about why I wanted to join. And then both men agreed that I was probably a candidate, that I'd make an ideal candidate. And they put me forward to join. And I had to then go before the lodge standing committee, who talked to me and asked me questions, mainly about my belief, mainly about what I expected to get out of Freemasonry. And we're very pleased, so I don't expect to get anything out of Freemasonry as such, because you must not, as a Freemason, use it for your own benefit. Like any organisation, there are bad apples, but they are thrown out. And every month, the English Grand Lodge will notify in its publications who has been dismissed for misconduct or because they've had a criminal offence against them. I was quite worried when I had a car accident that might have been my fault, that might mean I had to leave the lodge. They are very strict about the law. But anyway, I passed the they were satisfied with me and said, right, we'll arrange a date for your initiation. You'll have heard that there are things like the rolled up trouser leg and the noose around the neck and the hoodwinking. That's wearing a mask. You know, your eyes you're hoodwinked, you can't see. You're told the reason for that when you as part of the ritual of joining. And there's nothing suspicious about it. Nothing at all. It makes common sense when you're told why. You can imagine why you bear one breast. Just think about the shape of a man's breast to that of a woman, you know. But anyway, I had my initiation. I was you're processed around the lodge, and various stages, things are done as you're introduced to different members of the lodge who have positions in the lodge. And, you know, there's the Grand Master, there's the Master, who sits in the seat of Solomon, who represents Hiram Abith, who is a biblical character. He has his senior and junior wardens, and there are deacons who assist those. There's a guard on the door and an outer guard. And those date back to the times when the lodges were in the Middle Ages, and that they didn't want outsiders to know what went on. You know, so you'd have an inner guard and an outer guard. Nothing spectacular about it. If you think of them more as a doorman, then you know, and somebody who is outside to meet anybody who comes and announce them to the inner guard. During the initiation, I was prayed for. I made certain promises. I was asked as somebody in darkness what I would like, and I said light. That's not to say that you were meant to be in spiritual darkness as such, more that you were blindfolded, and of course you would like light. You would like to be able to see. The blindfold was taken off at a point during the ceremony, and I was able to look round, and I actually recognised some people who were sat there who I was quite surprised to see, because I didn't realise that they were Freemasons, that they were full of smiles when they saw me. The first degree is called the Entered Apprentice's degree. It symbolises a young man coming into the lodge for the first time as an entered apprentice Freemason, and instead of using the tools of a Freemason to prepare stone, we use them as symbols in our daily lives. And mainly things considered was, you know, how you spent your time, how you lived, that kind of thing. Once I was accepted, I had a white apron on to symbolise my Masonic, you know, my first Masonic apron, and some would say as a sign of purity, as a sign of, you know, you're new, you know nothing. And that was it. The ritual taught me various things about the Entered Apprentice degree. I was given passwords and grips, handshakes, so that I could enter the lodge. You know, I could be allowed in by the outer guard, and the inner guard would receive my password and my grip, so that he knew that I was that degree. And I was only allowed into the lodge of that degree. And the lodge meets in 3 degrees. So for the first few times I went, I left shortly after the lodge was opened. before the lodge started working in another degree, I would leave the lodge and be admitted when they had come down back to a first degree lodge. My second degree was that of a journeyman, if you like. God, I've forgotten the word, I'm sorry. But, you know, that you were an entered apprentice and then you were a fellow craft Freemason. That's the word. So that degree had rituals about what it meant to be a fellow craft Freemason. And again, there were its own handshakes and its own degrees, its own words. I'm not going to tell you what sort of the rituals were in those degrees, because if ever you joined, it would spoil it for you. That's why many Masons refuse to say anything about what goes on in a lodge. But that next degree marked my progress. So before I was accepted into that degree, I had to answer questions. And again, these were usually the questions that would be given to a stranger who came to the lodge and said, you know, I wish to go up to the next degree. So you'd be asked, well, are you, you know, where were you made a Mason and that kind of thing? Are we sure that you're who you say you are? And then I was given an apron instead of a white apron, it had 2 symbols on it. Final degree is a Master Mason. That's the third, and there are only 3 degrees in craft Freemasonry. Don't let anybody tell you differently. Once you are the 3rd degree, you are completely, totally a Freemason. You don't have to do anything else. And what I say is that the 3rd degree teaches you how to live, how to face death. You are not raised from the dead. You are not, you know, it's about how we live our lives. It's the whole thing about Freemasonry. It makes good men better. That's what we claim, and that's what we hope would happen. Now, I could progress further by going up the line that they say, you know, that means taking different jobs in the lodge until you reach the degree, you know, until you reach the position of worshipful master. And then you rule the lodge for a year. You sit in the main chair and you're the decision maker within the rules of the lodge. But you don't have to do that, because that involves a lot of learning of the ritual. In England, we're allowed to read the ritual to learn it. In some countries, you have to learn by rote. Somebody will put it in your ear, they will give you the words, and you have to repeat them and repeat them and repeat them until you know them. In England, we have a little blue book that we can read the words out of, so that we know what's going on, and so that we learn the rituals. Or, if you want, you can just be a Freemason You sit in lodge, you enjoy what's going on, and then after the meeting, we meet together for a meal. And in England, we have alcohol. In some countries, they don't. And it's just an ordinary meal. We have a lodge chaplain who is usually, if they have an ordained man in the lodge, then he might take the place of chaplain. And his job is just to say things like the grace and any prayers that are needed to be said. But they're not prayers in the sense that of a church. They're more prayers that are said at a Boy Scout camp or something like that, or at any meeting. You know, you would ask God to bless you. And that basically is it. There are side orders that you can join. Some of them you have to be invited to join. And some of them will take you up to different levels. For example, I was, in one of my side orders, I was an 18th degree. Sorry, I was 17th. I could have then gone on, yes, I was 18th. I could have then gone on to be up to be 30 and 33. And there are other side orders that practice different things. There is the Royal Arch Masonry, which is what they call the fourth degree, having said there are only 3 degrees. And that the reason that they suggest you join that is because it gives you some more information about about the growth of Freemasonry and that. I realise I've gone on a long time, but I'm going to finish very soon. I just want to talk about the belief in a higher power. Because we're not a religion, each man is accepted to have his own religions. So in a lodge, you might come across a Jew, a Muslim, any other religion really. But we don't discuss religions. So it enables us all to meet without having doctrines coming in between us, to be friends. And yes, we the main role in an English lodge as well is charity. Freemasonry supports charity. It gives millions of pounds each year to charity. Most of them are charities outside Freemasonry, although some are Masonic charities, that provide education for children of Freemasons or provide for widows and orphans, that kind of thing. There is never any monetary advantage of becoming a Freemason. There is no job advantage. There is no advantage in society. Freemasonry has everybody from dustbin men to labourers to doctors, solicitors and royalty. And kings have been Freemasons. Clergy have been Freemasons. Bishops have been Freemasons, although not as many now as there used to be. And I think that's where I want to leave it. I hope I haven't offended anybody from any other lodge or organisation or Grand Lodge by what I've said. If I have, or you think I've misrepresented something, then please let me know. So, tech, you asked if I would put something up about Freemasonry, and I've done so. If you want to know anything else, then contact me, and if I can tell you, I will. Now, I'll end in my usual manner. Whatever God you believe in, may your God bless you. May grace fall down upon you. May each day be a blessing. And in times of trouble and illness, may your God comfort you and send you healing. And those of us who do not believe in God, may we live our lives as men of honour and women of honour, living as best we can in the hope that when we die, people will recognise that we were people of honour.